Okay, it's time for another video again. This is a video about George Floyd again. Although this one is a response video. I'm making a video because the conversation got lengthy enough from someone responding to me that I felt my response needed to be in a video. And I apologize for that if it's an inconvenience in any way. It's very difficult for me to write lengthy responses. I do everything via my phone, and I don't think the phone is user-friendly when it comes to typing messages as a response on YouTube. But I'm going to try to keep this really short here. This is a response to an individual. Thank you for actually engaging in conversation with me. I appreciate it, as opposed to just throwing insults and you know, having it degenerate into name calling. Even if we wind up at the end of the day completely disagreeing on everything, I still think legitimate conversation that doesn't degenerate into just insults is a good thing. I think it is, regardless of whether we agree at the end or not. It's perfectly acceptable to disagree. You don't have to, you know, think that what I'm saying is true or accurate, but the fact that we can discuss things makes me happy. And so thank you for actually being able to do that. So here we go. My response. I'm going to show a screenshot of what the individual said and respond to it. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to have a little bit more ranting, but I want to get the response done. So if the individual doesn't want to listen to me rant, he doesn't have to. He can leave, or anybody can that doesn't want to hear whatever I have to say at the end. So thank you, and here we go with my response. Okay, so it's easier for me to have made a screenshot of what you said and then put it together here and then respond, as opposed to trying to scroll through it on my phone. But I did want to have your information directly in front of me so I could read it. Okay, so this is what you have said that either I haven't fully responded to or I haven't responded to at all yet. There was a second part about Rayshard Brooks. I'm going to hold off on that, maybe even not even do one, because it seems like with the Rayshard Brooks case, you strongly believe that the Taser was lethal force, which, if it is lethal force, the police had every right to shoot him. I do not believe it's lethal force, and I think it's just going to be redundant. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. Okay, well, we don't agree. If there's something else there that I missed, feel free to let me know. I'll double check it again. Maybe I'll comment. Maybe I'll type it out. Maybe I'll make another video. But right now, I don't think that it's going to get past the simple case of we disagree. When, I presume this is going to be a when as opposed to an if, it goes to trial. And if the officer is found innocent, whether I like it or not, I'll accept that. Okay, fine. If it's found innocent, if he's found innocent because the Taser is considered lethal force, doesn't matter whether I agree with it or not, I will accept that. Right now, I don't accept it, but if that's the way the law rules, I will accept that. Won't agree, won't like it, but I will accept it. But let's talk about George Floyd. Okay, you say, no, the police didn't kill Floyd, he died of a drug overdose. Okay, we're gonna have a disagreement right there. The knee would not cause harm. Okay, we'll keep reading in a second. Then you had two separate autopsies. You had the police autopsy, and then you had a private individual that was hired to come in and do an autopsy. Both autopsies, the police autopsy originally put forth what they called preliminary information that they then updated and changed. But as of right now with this video, both autopsies say that George Floyd's death was a homicide caused by knee compression to the neck exacerbated by additional circumstances, which include the illegal substances in his system and his medical condition. But it's a straightforward response. Homicide caused by neck compression. And the second autopsy, the private autopsy, added an additional caveat where they said homicide caused by neck compression and back compression. Because I haven't really seen anybody say this, but one of the other officers, not the one that had his knee on George Floyd's neck, but another one that was there, was putting pressure on George Floyd's back as well. Now, that was early on in the 7-minute stretch when the knee was on George Floyd's neck, and he stopped after, I think they said 2 minutes. But it was there, and the second autopsy indicated that was also a contributing factor. So we disagree right off the bat. The police didn't kill George Floyd. Yes, they did. I'm not saying you're automatically going to agree with me, but both autopsies say that. Okay. The knee would not cause harm. I had it done on me and suffered no breathing problems. I urge you to try it for yourself. I don't think you will. Okay. I may try it. I'm not overly excited about it because I think there's too many variables that won't be taken into account, but I might try it. But let me tell you what I think the problem is in doing that. I'm not law enforcement. I don't know anybody that is law enforcement. And if that also applies to you, then nobody doing this has the training and the understanding of how that neck technique works. Now, I'm going to post a bunch of links. One of those links is a news article that has the statement that point blank says the neck compression technique, the knee in the neck, is considered a dangerous technique. I'm going to post a link to someone that has trained police officers and that has firsthand knowledge and talks about how over a decade ago that technique started getting phased out of police departments because it was problematic in that it caused the exact problem that occurred here. So you're saying a knee to your neck doesn't cause a problem, but first of all, unless you're a police officer, the person doing it to you is a police officer, I think you're automatically starting with a flawed process. Second of all, the fact that you're having someone do this to you, okay, I think there's inherently an immediate bias. Whoever is doing it to you does not want to hurt you. They may want to, do what you're asking them to do. They may want to, put you through this simulation, but there's going to be, subconscious or not, a desire to not literally hurt you. So even if they want to do it properly, they're going to try to make sure it doesn't hurt you because they don't want to hurt you. That's just, to me, that's common sense. Obviously, I didn't have it done to me. I'm not you. I'm not the person that did it to you. It just seems to me that that's an inherent potential serious flaw in what you did. And finally, there's the fact that no matter how you set up this reenactment, you're not George Floyd. You didn't have his feelings. You weren't potentially suffering from an anxiety attack. You weren't potentially suffering from the trauma and stress of being put into the back of the car and whatever that mental state put you in. You weren't suffering from his medical conditions, including whatever his heart problem was. You did not have the illegal drugs in your system. So any reenactment isn't actually a reenactment. It's an attempt to get as close as you can. But it falls short in almost every level, in my opinion, because it's not done professionally. It's not done with the intent, presuming that there was intent here, to hurt you. It's not done with the same emotion and stress level and mental state of mind that George Floyd was in. So it's automatically flawed. It's inherently flawed. Is it a good idea? Is it a good thought? Yeah, I mean, I think that was something to consider and think about and say, well, let's try it. But again, I'm falling back on the fact that, in my opinion, there is evidence that says this technique should not be used. And if you listen to the guy that has done police training, he points out that not only should it not be used, but in almost all cases when it has been used, it's a very short-term thing done in the heat of the moment to usually regain control of a situation where control was lost or potentially being lost. George Floyd was not resisting. He was laying down, which he asked if he could. He was laying down on the ground. He was not resisting. And for something over 7 minutes, which originally I thought it was 8 minutes, but that has been corrected. They now say it's 7 minutes plus. So for something over 7 minutes, he was laying there begging, and as I recall, 16 times he said, "Please, I can't breathe." He was not resisting. He was restrained. He was in handcuffs, and he was face down with 4 officers around him. There is no reason to use a technique that, even if it does get used, is only designed to be a very short-term thing for over 7 minutes. So I think your inherent approach is flawed in trying to understand it, and I think your belief that it isn't a problem is flawed because everything that I have read says it is. Okay. The Floyd case is fairly simple once all the facts are known. I heard them quite early. Triple the amount of lethal fentanyl in his system and heart disease. Okay. There was presumption from the get-go that he was probably dealing with illegal drugs in his system. So even though that was proven, which I didn't see that actually written anywhere, I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not even trying to imply it's not true. I'm sure it is. I just haven't seen it. But the fentanyl was not killing him. Now, was it good for him? No, of course not. But he wasn't dying up until the course of time where that 7 minutes stretched out. He was in his van. He was fine. He was handcuffed and brought over towards the other police vehicle. He was fine. He was in the store purchasing cigarettes, which he purchased and then left the store. And after the fact, somebody came out of the store, 2 employees came out of the store and said, "Hey, this is a fake 20. We want our cigarettes back." Let's touch on that real quick since it just came up. After the fact, somebody's going to come out and say, "Hey, we got a 20 here that's fake and it's the one you gave us." Really? Maybe there's information I don't have in that regard that shows in the store while he was there they validated it was a fake 20. But if that's the case, why did they even make the sale? Why did they give him cigarettes knowing they had a fake 20? Why did they wait and come out after the fact to tell him they wanted the cigarettes back? At that point, you don't even know it's the same 20 he gave them unless there's evidence I don't have, which there might be. Okay. But he was not dying from the fentanyl. So there's that. Let's keep going. I knew Floyd asked to be laying on the ground. I knew that the department in question allows neck restraint if trained. Okay. We talked about that already. Most police departments, from everything that I have read and what I understand, have gotten rid of that technique because it is bad. Okay. I also knew that Floyd was not restrained for resisting. He was being held because he exhibited excited delirium. Okay, I disagree with that. I don't think this issue really matters, but from everything I have read, he was arrested and being held because he allegedly passed a counterfeit bill. That was my understanding of it. I don't think it really matters. I just wanted to say that. I also knew an ambulance was called 1 minute after Floyd was on the ground. Okay? I'm not 100% sure on that timing, but from everything I understand, it was pretty close if it wasn't exactly a minute. So I'll go with that. As I understand it, they called for an ambulance. They said it was a non-emergency situation, which again, on first call, I didn't think it was an emergency situation, so I see no problem with that. Within like 2 minutes, they upped it to an emergency call. Okay, good call on their part. I knew that sitting someone up with fentanyl overdose is the most dangerous position as it cuts off the airflow when the subject passes out, as he did. Okay, first of all, I don't have that information. So unless you can provide a link, then I don't have anything to say in regards to that. However, you're going off the assessment here that the police would have known he was overdosing from fentanyl. I don't think so. They may have suspected, but there was nothing at all to validate that. They didn't say anything that I heard in any of the videos that we think he's got fentanyl so we can't sit him up. That never came up. I think that's a little stretch you're making there. You're talking about something after the fact that you know that you think might have applied. I don't think that's right. All right. Since that time, I have viewed the knee compression many times. I think we all have. Knowing all of the above, I suspected the death was because of drug overdose. I also suspected no neck compression from that position would cause blockage of airway or blood flow to the brain. I also took steps to have the same knee compression done upon me. Other than a sore neck and a tender left cheek, I felt no ill effects. I know as a fact that the knee did not cause the death because I was in no distress. Okay, we've already touched on this. I'm not going to go over it a lot, but most, from my understanding, police departments around the country have eliminated this technique from their police departments because it does cause a problem. In all cases where it is allowed, it's supposed to be, from my understanding, a very short-term thing, not something that you continue and let drag on and on and on. We're going to get to that more in a minute. And finally, your reenactment falls way short of the actual situation, in my opinion. So, there's that. Had no trouble breathing and felt no lightheadedness from blood restriction. Okay? Once you understand that the knee did not cause the death, you have to discover why Chauvin is charged. Hopefully I pronounced that right. I attempted to discuss this with many people on day one, and no one would even discuss it being anything but murder. All right, I think it's good that you try to talk about it. I think the reason is the video looked bad. Yes, it did. And then a man died. Correct. Looking bad, being against policy, and causing the death are different things. Absolutely agree. Absolutely. However, I think I have pointed out and validated that it is against policy. If it's not, it should be, because it is a problem, and causing the death has already been proven by 2 separate autopsies. So I don't know where you're coming from, but I think most of it's from a faulty original assessment. You're going to make a separate response to the Rayshard Brooks case. Okay. I've responded to everything now. I'm going to go back to my normal video style and go for a little bit of a rant. If you want to make any comment or whatever, I'm done with my response to you. If you want to continue to listen, I have a couple more things I want to say. So, again, thank you for being willing to actually discuss this, as opposed to just yell and call each other names and have no productive dialogue. Okay, so I finished my response to the gentleman in question that has been discussing this video with me, this case with me. And again, I just want to say thank you. If you're still listening, thank you very much for actually engaging in discussion. Even if we completely still disagree, even if you think everything I've said was wrong, at least we can engage in conversation, discussion, and debate. And I think that matters. I think it's important. I do agree, without hesitation, this still has to go to trial. And just like I mentioned with the Rayshard Brooks case, if it turns out that these officers are found innocent, I'll accept that. I personally may not believe it, unless actually I see evidence that I go, oh, okay, well, yeah, you got that. But if that's the way it turns out, even if it's, completely faulty, I'll accept it, because that's the way it turned out. But I think something that you're missing here as well, or that a lot of people are missing, is that the protesters are not saying that George Floyd was a perfect model citizen. They're not saying that police officers shouldn't defend themselves, or that if people do something wrong, if they do not comply, that a police officer should just be all super nice to them and not even worry about it. No, of course not. You reap the results of what you do. What the protests are saying, or at least in my mind, what the protests are saying, are that a police officer is inherently held to a higher standard because of his job, and because he is responsible to protect and to serve. People have to believe that he's going to do everything possible, or he or she, the police officer, is going to do everything possible to protect and to serve, even if it's a criminal. Now, of course, if the criminal is trying to cause someone harm, if they're doing something that's going to cause someone injury, of course the police officer has full right to respond and prevent that. And if that causes someone to be killed, I will support that. I'll support that 100%. But what happened here? You had, if you want to call it resisting arrest, fine. You had resisting arrest of someone who had, as I understand it, illegal drugs in their system, who had allegedly just passed a counterfeit bill. So none of that, even still, none of that justifies being killed. So if actions, if techniques are being used that cause someone to be killed when they didn't deserve it, then we have to re-examine what the police are doing. Now, in this case, people are saying that the police need to be charged with murder. Okay, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But at the bare minimum, what needs to be done is an examination of how the police system works, how police officers are trained, what they are trained to do and what they are expected to do. Because I personally support the police until I think someone has done something wrong. I think, generally speaking, police unions are wrong. They go out of their way to make every effort possible to discredit any negative thing about a police officer's action. They will take a police officer that legitimately gets fired for inappropriate behavior and move them to a different precinct or location, a different department, so that they can get rehired. That's wrong. That's wrong. The police union, of course, yes, it should stand up for the officers because that's what unions do. But the police union should inherently be the pinnacle of what police are supposed to represent, which is serving and protecting the people. And it doesn't, and that's a problem. And when police are taught to behave in ways that a large majority of people think are inappropriate, maybe we need to re-examine that. Maybe we need to consider if indeed the training is wrong, if indeed we're asking too much of our police officers, if maybe defunding the police, which does not have to mean completely eliminating the police, it just means take some of the funding and move it sideways into something where people who are more adequately trained or designed to handle a problem, like, for example, mental health, or, for example, substance abuse, or any other issue that we have dumped on the police because we want to save money. So we get rid of all these social services and just say, oh, the police will take care of it. Well, that's a problem. It creates a problem for the police. You can only expect them to do so much, and everything that you expect them to do is going to have an impact on their mental state of mind. And we need to re-examine that. Now, I don't believe that the police are completely bad. No, of course not. But I do believe there is a systemic issue of police abuse of power. There is the problem of racism in the police department, which you cannot afford to have someone who is supposed to be enforcing the laws being a racist. You cannot afford to have someone who is supposed to be enforcing the laws engaging in criminal behavior. Police have to be held to a higher standard. That sucks, but they're enforcing the law. They have to be. And if you do not, it's going to create problems. So maybe Rayshard Brooks wasn't a murder. Maybe George Floyd wasn't a murder. I personally think they both were. Maybe they weren't. But I think they bring to light the fact that we have to examine what police are being taught, why they are being taught that, and what we really expect from them, and if it makes sense to expect that much. That is what these protests are about. And to automatically say that just because someone resisted arrest, or just because someone had illegal substance in their system, well, they died, too bad for them. No. I've said it before, I'm doubling down again. No, absolutely not. George Floyd should not be dead. Somehow, something should have been done different, whether it was intentional or not. He died at the hands of the police because of what they did.
A new message has arrived.
And because of that, this is why I'm making these videos, because I think we need to re-examine the police departments and their role and their expectations. Again, thanks for watching. I hope everybody has a good day.